We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Hi, my name is Rachelle Ocampo, and welcome to Makilala TV. Today's episode is very timely for many of us who have student loans, aka me and the 42.9 million Americans with federal student loans. And this is according to the data from the US Department of Education. What we do know is that the Biden government has taken steps to so-called forgive some loans. Our guest today will shed some light on topics we don't know, such as one, who qualifies for forgiveness, and two, how to apply for it. Our topic brings us to the issue of financial health as Filipinos and whether we as a community know how to manage our paychecks and other resources. Wiping out student loans should be a welcome relief. So, our guest, MJ Flowells, executive producer of Off the Struggle Bus, a personal finance podcast for millennials in the public sector. And joining her in the panel is Sharmaine Anderson, financial professional of New York Life and an advocate of financial literacy. On behalf of my co-hosts, Jen Fuhrer and Cristina Pastor, let me welcome Maria and Maine.
Hi.
Hello.
So my first question to jump off the topic is really from Maria. Who is eligible to get their student loan forgiven? Like, what is this program that's happening, and what should we know about it?
Yeah, so you are eligible if you have most federal loans, including direct loans and any other loans held by the U.S. Department of Education, and your income is less than $125,000 if you're an individual, or less than $250,000 if you're a household. And what you're eligible for can be between $10,000 to $20,000 based on if you received a Pell Grant. That's the higher amount.
Okay. Yeah. All these numbers are really confusing. Like, I don't even know how much I make in terms of individual or as a family household. And it's a little overwhelming. Like, where did you get your information? How do we get more information outside of this episode?
Definitely the Education Department, the U.S., I'm forgetting the URL, which basically U.S. Department of Education will have those details. And for you to find your income level, think about when you filed taxes this past year. That amount that you were taxed on is your income level that they're going to bring in.
Yeah, I was super excited. When I heard this, I was like, yes, I can be eligible, I think. And I have, student loans from undergrad. I was so excited that I may be eligible for it, even though I was trying to go for another forgiven loan program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness, which I believe for 10 years of working in nonprofit, you can be eligible to get your loans forgiven. So either way, I hopefully am eligible for either $10,000 or $20,000 in the next few months.
Do you have? Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jen.
Do you have to apply for it? Is it is there a deadline? Is it automatically since you're in the system under FAFSA?
So for the Biden-Harris forgiveness, they're going to release details this month, actually. So in a couple of weeks, they'll show how. But Rachelle, the thing you also need to think about, there was a COVID waiver for PSLF that expires on October 31st. So even if you don't think you qualify, you should absolutely put in your PSLF request, because it can forgive pay periods that you didn't pay money into. Like, you know how it was frozen for COVID? Those 2 years that we didn't pay anything can count towards your PSLF if you apply by October 31st. So,
oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money that could be forgiven. So I will definitely have to, okay, it's almost October. Yes.
You got
Yeah,
this.
I think I'm like Rochelle. I am a target audience of this loan forgiveness program. There was a time in my family's life when we were all going to college. I
No.
was finishing my bachelor's degree at the new school. My husband was taking up his MA in the same school, and our daughter was in community college, and we all took up student loans. So before we knew it, we had something like 100,000 in student loans that we are paying religiously. Okay, so this is really a welcome effort from the government, and I do not understand why politically some people would oppose it. It is a good program, right, Maria?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good program. And don't get me wrong, they could do more. Like 10,000, 20,000 is a drop in the bucket. And if you
Mm-hmm.
were able to pay your student loans, wonderful. I can understand some resentment from those folks.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't been paying student debt for the past 2 years, and the government is fine and
Mm-hmm.
things can be done. I mean, I'm not going to go on a soapbox about the administration, but it is possible. And so folks are pushing, and there's this organization called the Debt Collective that folks should also check out. But it's great to have this forgiveness, but government can absolutely do more.
So
But
I'd
just
like to know,
to
why
make
is education? Why is U.S. education very expensive? Maybe Maine can answer also, Maria.
What's the question again? I was
Why
paying.
is American education so expensive?
Well, because most of it is we have top teachers and professors in the country. So, and it also depends on the schools that you go into. Well, we're in the US and we are in, in the top country that most of us countries go to. Like a lot of students go here for the top education. So that's why it's expensive.
Yeah,
but
I
I
think it
think
depends on your situation. If I ended up choosing private college, there are some more affordable options like SUNY and CUNY,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
fortunately in New York State. But for me, when I was looking for colleges, I was looking at whoever could give me the most money. And for me, I was not financial literate. I just saw, okay, St. John's, that's where I went to, gave me this amount, and this is how much Stony Brook gave me. And I didn't realize at that time that that money included loans that
Me
I
too. I didn't know that.
and I was like, wow, what a great package. But it really, you have to, at 8, 17, 18, are
Mhm.
expected to know this. I felt like I was honestly duped. Yeah, so it's a lot of pressure for families to understand the loan process.
Yeah.
I think there's so much pressure for kids to go to college
Mm,
and like 4-year college or like expensive colleges have the college experience. But I think if you have children, you have to start talking to them about the options. And then, as Rochelle said, look at colleges. There's a net price calculator. You can figure out how much college will cost because it's not just tuition. Some people want to do on campus, and then the the books and all that stuff. But I think we have to sit down with our children or our grandchildren, what you have, how much you're allowed to spend or how much can you spend for education. Let's say you're taking a college option or a college degree. I mean, what do you expect to, like, what was the expect income? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be financially responsible. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons why some people are upset about the student forgiveness, because some kids just take on college debts for courses, not knowing there's a future. There's a possible income. Like you have like $100,000 a year. Maybe that's too much. Maybe $60,000 a year to go to college for a career that would probably, if you're lucky, get you a $30,000 a year income. So we have, as parents or grandparents, I think we have to start teaching our children to be financially responsible. Is that a term? Or I mean, doesn't mean that you can still make mistakes. You can still. Then what do you do when you like make bad decisions? What's the next step?
Yeah. Maine, I think that actually dives into your expertise. Like, what do you say to families as they start thinking about their their family's financial health?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, it really depends on the financial situation of every family. There are families that are well off that don't need financial, I mean, student loans and stuff. But for for most of us that needs like assistance with that, I usually advise my clients to start saving early. As soon as you give birth, children, babies 14 days old, you can already set up something for them that would go compounding interest. And then later on at their life, when they're 18, they could use that money for college funding as well. So you don't have to really set up I'm apply for any student loans or anything in that sense. If you're preferred early on.
If
Yeah, I
Manny, are you seeing that today's younger Filipino Americans are more responsible financially than their elders and their parents?
I think so, but it also depends if they are aware of it. So a lot of um, families right now are getting more aware of it, but still there are those who are families that are like laid back and not what do you call this, don't have the financial literacy when getting into like learning about compounding interest, life insurance, because all they know is like life insurance is just a death benefit, but no, there's a lot of benefit to it. So you can earn a lot of compounding interest. It depends on what kind of policy you take.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and
That's
it's
right.
tax free.
I think that's a big misunderstanding is, when to start talking to your kids about financial responsibility. Like, Jen, are you already telling your granddaughter like how to save? Like, how do you start that conversation with your kids? Would you already?
I'd like to listen to that
I
conversation with your
know.
granddaughter.
No, I mean, I remind my kids that you cannot spend more than what you have. Sometimes it's difficult, because you don't have a lot, but you have to spend the necessities, and but I guess starting from that one, try not to spend more than what you earn or what you have in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know what's the good percentage of like how much do you put away.
Mm,
But it's really hard, especially with social media now. Everybody's traveling,
yeah.
everybody's
Exactly.
doing nice stuff. And sometimes, they have these credit card offers that they bring to you, no matter like they say, oh, it's 0% interest rate. But then
Yeah.
you don't realize if you don't pay, like if you miss that one payment, they'll be like 20% or something like that. I mean, I'm not exact details. So
Yeah.
sometimes you fall off, fall off you end up having all these debts. So what do you do? Um, it's very hard. So you just said you just have to start them early. So like Maria, you have that organization off the struggle bus. I mean, no matter how much, sometimes no matter how much you save and try to be responsible, you still like, oh my God, I have all these debts. What do I do? Like, where can I go? Do I file
Yeah.
bankruptcy or do I, play the lottery?
Tell us about this podcast, Maria, off the
Oh,
struggle bus.
yeah, definitely. So, off the struggle bus, as you all know, my background is in the public sector. I've spent almost the past 15 years doing media and working on national campaigns. And what we realize as people working in the public sector, that we're always making that joke of like, we're overworked and underpaid, and we're always on a struggle bus
Yes.
at work. So, we're tired.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And there is a lot of money in politics, and
Mhm.
nobody really talks to the people who work in politics, right? We may have MPAs and manage $1 million budgets, but when it comes to personal finance, which is so personal, no, no, there's no training, there's no financial literacy. Like they don't teach that in New York City public schools. So that's why this idea came to me last year, and I actually attended a finance conference this past month where like everything clicked, and it was such a diverse set of personal finance creators that I took everything I learned from that conference and can actually implement this podcast. So I'm excited to talk to nonprofit professionals, people with like a public facing, you know, campaign, and personal finance folks that I've met recently and are now new lifelong friends. So bringing all that together to making sure that people don't feel so alone in figuring out their money.
So you deal with a lot of millennials, Maria. Where do they spend their money on?
Well, I mean, I don't have that data. We're millennial,
Mhm,
generally for millennials, but in
mhm.
2020,
But what do you
about
see?
yeah, and people don't have, um, one, people aren't comfortable talking about money, right? Like I have been
Mhm.
on this course for the past 2 years, ever since, or actually almost 3 years now, ever since I found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, there's going to be a new human here. He needs to be set up. So that's sort of been the rabbit hole I've been down listening to all these podcasts. But I've come to find as I talk to friends, as I talk to mentors, peers, right? Start talking about money or benefits or finances, a lot of the time people give me blank looks, right? Because it's such a dense topic and there's a lot of shame associated with it, especially like I grew up in a family who didn't talk about finances, right? My Filipino family immigrated from the Philippines to here and we're so busy trying to survive in
Yeah.
Queens, right, that they didn't exactly have it's not for them not wanting to teach us about finances, it's that they couldn't, right? So generally the advice that, you know, I've been sharing with people is one, to remove shame from the conversation. Then you have to talk about money with everyone around you, even if it's new and uncomfortable, because learning everybody's money management styles, the tools, the systems is so important. And then also talking about careers, right? Like salary transparency and negotiations. Like I cannot tell you how many mentees and mentors I've talked through, like, no, this person's making X amount of money. And I come out of New York City government, right? And state government. So all those salaries are public. So I
Yeah.
have no shame in looking at salaries and going, this person should be making this amount. So if you're applying to this job, you absolutely can ask for X amount, right? I've coached so many friends through that process. And then the second thing is building your emergency fund because we are in unprecedented times, right? Paying debt, absolutely important. Investing, cool, like if you can do that. But having that, you know, 3 to 6 months of emergency funds for yourself is like having your air mask for yourself. Because, you know, when you're on a plane, put
Mm-hmm.
your air mask on. Money, finances are the way you do that as a, you know, personal finance is very personal, you know, so you know the amount that you need for yourself, or you should. And then the third thing, and this is a concept I've been trying to toy with for the past couple of weeks, is your income staying on track with inflation? And think about, yes, you get a salary increase every year, 3%, whatever. Great, perfect. Amazing that your organizations can do that for you. But in 2022, the inflation rate is 8.9%, right? In
Mm.
2021, it was 7%. And before the pandemic, or I guess this is during the pandemic, the inflation rate was 1.4. So is that 3% salary increase you're getting every year actually helping you live better? Like it's so that's something, just food for thought, because that has, these three things have like driven me to explore personal finance in a way. And I think this off the struggle bus podcast is the way that I'm processing it for myself.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
get to talk money with all my friends. So
I love that. I feel like those three tips are really important. I'm more of like, tell me exactly what to do right now. Like, what is one step I can do after this episode to sign up for, to stop doing? Maine, is there something that you would encourage everyone to do outside of this episode? Like, is it to open up an Roth IRA? Is it to do a 529 for my kid? Like, what is the one thing that practical that I can do after this episode?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, right now is the right time after we get off this to start saving for a lot of different venues like Roth IRAs, traditional annuities, compounding interest, whole life insurances. Reason being is that every month or every year interest goes up and premiums goes up as well, and your health is not as good as yesterday's. So it's always better to start as early as today to do that, so that all the interest, the money that you will be making in the future will already be set up for you, especially if you have young kids. With my kids, I started educating them like financially. Like I have an 8-year-old. I started when he was 5 or 4, telling him
Oh,
what,
wow.
yeah, what to do when he's like 18, and
Was
telling
was
him
he interested?
he is. I always tell them,
That's nice.
once you start making money, this is what you're gonna do. And a lot of things, especially because I have 3 boys, so since they're gonna be the breadwinner when they become
Oh, that's
they have
fine.
their own family, I
Yeah.
already set something on their mind, like implant something that
Mm-hmm.
you have to make a savings for yourself when you're single, so that when you get married in the future, you have something for yourself for your retirement later on.
Maine, is there a Filipino trait or a Filipino characteristic towards money that you hope you would like to change?
Oh, the spending habits.
Oh, we tend to be very generous when we spend.
Yeah, we do, and we're I think I'm also guilty of that. We're like impulse buyers, right? So,
Oh,
but sometimes we buy things that we really don't need, and end up not putting the money away, instead to right investment, savings, or any kind of investment. So some most Filipinos right now, or even back in the day, would rather buy like material things than things that you could save, like
Like Louis Vuitton bags.
Louis Vuittons, right? Like I think most, I'm guilty with that, well, of that too. But once
they're supposed to be an investment too, Maine, right? Those
I
bags.
know, I know, but what if nobody buys it?
Yes. Well, I actually mean you touched upon something that actually I'm going to push back on, because I now have a daughter as of 7 weeks ago, and when you
Mhm,
said breadwinner, I was like, my daughter could be the breadwinner of the family. So I'm thinking,
Absolutely.
exactly.
I'm like, I'm going to set up both of them for with like a brokerage account, not just
Hmm.
a savings account, so that that could, like what you're saying,
Exactly.
always compound interest,
Yep.
and making sure that I set them up for that. So
Hmm.
that is my thing that I'm going to do after this episode, is set up that brokerage account for Addie, so that she, even though
Or
she doesn't,
get a whole life insurance
yeah,
because it's tax free.
I mean, you and I are going to talk after this. Set
There's
some,
one client.
yeah. um yeah, I feel like there's so many little things. And Maria, you said everything is personal. Like my situation is not the same as Jen, even
Hmm.
though you have your granddaughter, Jen. I mean, I don't know what you've set up already for her, if anything.
They already have a brokerage account.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great,
That's
yes.
good. That's good. Start
Yeah.
I
them
mean,
early.
every gift, like I told
Exactly.
my kids, my daughter, that the gift that we're giving you for a birthday, baptism, we put it in a brokerage account. And when my kids were little, I think I told you that in the last episode, is that when they were little, if they have any allowance, it goes to their bank and I match it. They start them when they're little kids.
Ooh.
You start them putting away money.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're older, when we talk about credit cards, you get the credit cards, so make sure you pay the full balance every month. You
Exactly.
use the credit card because it gives you cashback bonus. And then
Yes.
I'm not advertising Capital One, but you get 2%. And then when you redeem it through travel, it becomes 4%. So the money, like you get more, more credit, like more money in a way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and then they used to have coupons and all this stuff, but now if you use the credit card, just wisely, pay the balance at the end of the month, the full balance every time, but you
Mm-hmm.
get the cash back. They can get the cash back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot
They
of
always
things
catch
you
me
could
on that.
do. But the hard part is saying no to the stuff that you don't really need, but you want them because it looks, or you think that your kids want them. That's kind of hard, especially if it
Mm-hmm.
looks cute of them. It's hard, it's hard to. And you buy everything online, instead you're gonna return it. Make sure you return
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like you return it on the time that you're supposed to return it.
Jen, I love your idea of matching. So whenever there's a birthday or a celebration, I would tell my family and friends, if you do give in cash, I will match it in their brokerage account. That is such a great, like, automatic thing I should do. So yeah, I love that. I'm gonna take that. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes. I wanted to is there any other questions, Jen or Christina, that you have for Maria and Maine about student loans or being financially healthy?
The student loans that were being forgiven are the student loans from the federal government, like the federal, the FAFSA. I think it's called FAFSA, right? That's where you got it from. So if you get it from the New Jersey or from the state or private loans, those are not part of this student loan forgiveness, correct?
Private loans are not. The ones
Okay.
from the state might actually qualify. It just it has to go through financial aid.
So where can you get that information?
The U.S. Department of Education. So they have, FAFSA would start. No, I think it's financial aid. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jen, that's good that you asked that question because I have private loans as well. I actually looked up the balance. I have $3,500 left on my private loan, and I'm thinking, I was like, this is never going to be forgiven. I looked at it, Maria, you're going to hate me. It's almost 9% interest that I'm paying every month. I was like,
ouch!
I need to pay this off.
Ouch!
The thing is, it's so out of sight, out of mind. And I didn't look into it until last month when all this student loan stuff is happening. I was like, yo, I could totally pay this off now and stop wasting 9% of interest. It's incredible how much that's like $30, $40 a month that I'm wasting. So that's another thing I'm doing is paying off that right away. There's so many things that I want to do in the next couple of days. And Christina, do you have any other final questions for Maine and Maria?
No, I'm learning so much from all of you because I never had this ideas of brokerage account when I was growing up and I was raising my kid. So thanks so much for all the information that's flowing out of these screens.
Yeah, so thank you again, Maria and Maine, for joining us. I'd love to learn more. We'll definitely share more on our Makilala TV Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to hear from everyone again soon. Everyone hopefully will be more financially healthy after this episode. Maraming
Exactly.
salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much for having me.